Afternoon, everyone. It's all go with this live streaming, isn't it? So, the Green Party, don't talk about them much. I don't ignore them, they just don't give you very much to talk about. But, so they've just had a leadership election. Zak Polanski, as expected, has won it hands down by vast majority of the votes. Not even close to being close. In fact, if he'd have halved his votes, if half the people that voted for him didn't bother voting at all, he'd have still won it comfortably. So in terms of thinking, by the way, just to be clear, I'm not at all a fan of anyone who says they deliberately want to turn their party into a populist party, because let's be clear about a couple of things. So before we can discuss how Zak Polanski may succeed or not, we have to consider two things. We have Phil again, is he never off the telly? No, I might do another one later tonight as well. We have to consider, first of all, what is populism? Just so that we're not misunderstanding here. We need to it can't be one of those situations where we have a rough idea of what we think it is in our heads. No, we need to be accurate here. Secondly, what are the Green Party's viable strategies? Because there are two competing strategies. I discussed this after the last election. I said at the time, the Green Party have a choice to make. The question is, has Zak Polanski made that choice? I am going to question, does Zak Polanski actually have a strategy? But anyway, so what is populism? Populism is a technique of rallying to support for yourself by identifying a section of society as being the enemy of everyone else. So it basically says, these people are your enemy, rally around us and we're going to take them on. Now, so I generally say a political party can either try to be populist or it can try to be serious. It can't be both. It's not that it physically can't be both. It is possible. You just very rarely see both. For example, you could look at the typical one. We'll always go to this when we talk about populists. The most successful populists in history, at least for a period, were the Nazi Party. They were populists, obviously. They identified enemies of society and they rallied everyone else in opposition to them. But they also had a serious project. It's horrific, but it was serious. Then you could say, so what if you were serious and you wanted to inject a bit of populism? Is that possible? I can't think of any cases where it's realistically happened, but some people have tried it. Gavin Newsom is trying it in the United States right now. A serious politician who is trying to inject a bit of populism. Will it work though? Is there any proven case of where it's worked? I'm not sure. So is Zak Polanski someone who says he wants his party to be a populist party, but in reality does intend to use it, to use the support it might gather for a serious project? So what is Zak Polanski's strategy? Well, let's focus on what the two strategies the Green Party have available to them are. And this is what I discussed after the last election. So the Green Party are a scattergun party. That is just like Reform UK last year. They get a good chunk of votes. They get a significant share of the vote. In fact, at the last election, it was a very big share of the vote for them, historically. But it's always a significant share of the vote. It has been for years. But it doesn't translate into a lot of electoral power because it's spread all around the country. The Green Party have never had a focused strategy. They've always had that scattergun approach of try to appeal to as many people as possible, because that's how you'd work elections, isn't it? And it's like, not necessarily, especially not with the first past the post system. The aim of politics is to win as many seats as you can, not as many votes as you can. So where the Green Party win is, if you look at some of their seats they've won, they're usually quite NIMBY areas. They're sort of, socially liberal, but leaning a bit right areas. There's a couple of seats that they won that would have otherwise been Labour seats, sure. But the other two were Conservative. And where they win councils, that's like Conservative areas. And that explains their NIMBYism in Parliament. So, for example, they say, look, obviously that's their thing, right? Green politics. So climate emergency, we need to do something. We need to do something really radical, just not where we live. So that's their attitude. So they, for example, at the council level, have blocked public transport options, therefore encouraging more people to have to use cars. They've blocked clean energy projects. So that's the reality of it, that they talk a good show nationally, but where they actually win power, they're very NIMBY. They could have carried on with that, and it looks to me like Ramsey wanted to carry on with that, for example, in particular. Then there's another strategy. Someone's mentioned there Brighton. Yeah, Brighton's a separate issue there. But what I'm talking about is where they have power. They don't have power in Brighton. They represent Brighton, but they don't have any administrative power in Brighton. They do where they have councils. The MP can't block any project like that. They can speak out against it, but they can't block it. The alternative strategy, however, is to recognise that the Green Party could vacuum up a load of those votes that are dissatisfied with Labour, which is clearly where Palansky is trying to lean into. But where are those votes strategically? If you're going to use it, like he says he wants to win 30 MPs at the next election. I mean, I can come up with some reasons why, fine to have ambition, but yeah, it's not happening. So he reckons he wants to win 30. So where's he going to get these from, right? Where is the Green Party's best chance of winning new votes in a way that could turn into new seats? It's young, liberal, urban dwelling, usually graduates, right? That's your best source of votes for the Green Party. If they really wanted to expand, the best people to target are young, liberal, graduates, progressive, left wing, right? They're in the cities. They're not NIMByists. They don't like the NIMBY thing. They are fully seized of the, I mean, they live in cities, right? In and around cities. They're used to infrastructure all around them. They're not put off by it like the people out in like the shires. So, and I said at the time, the Green Party have to choose which one of those they become. Which one's Zak Polanski? Which one is he? Honestly, there's bound to be some people here who know Zak Polanski better than I do. Which one is he? Because I haven't heard him say either. He's clearly not. So, because here's the risk as well for the Green Party. So, they had to adopt one of those strategies. They can't try and do both. That's not going to happen because either you're NIMBY or you're not. You're either NIMBY, in which case you're not really in favour of radical reforms, and that's not going to appeal to the young liberal graduates, right? Or you are going to go for it with your radical reforms, and you're going to go, and you have to be anti-NIMBY. Like, he's attacked Keir Starmer today, right, without really saying what about, but Starmer's come in saying we're going to smash the NIMBYs. He's saying we're going to build this green infrastructure, we're going to build these houses, and if people have got a problem with it locally, tough shit. That's his attitude. Zak Polanski hasn't said that. So he hasn't aligned them with the YIMBY side, but what he's clearly going to do, and he's made it clear, what he's clearly going to do is he's actually going to upset a load of those traditional Green voters in the areas they win, right? Now, I'm not saying he's going to lose votes over this. He may get more votes at the next election, but that will not necessarily translate into more seats if he ends up appealing to people in areas where he can't win. Because what is his strategy for winning seats? To win seats, Zak Polanski appears to be fighting a culture war. He's not appearing to. He is absolutely fighting a culture war. I've got a couple of issues with Zak Polanski. The first of which is he's a known con man, right? I describe him in the thing as a posh boy chancer, right? Privately educated. And what did he do in his former career? He told women that they could think their tits bigger. That was his career. You can make your tits bigger with the power of hypnotherapy, right? That's who he is. And he's not really shown any signs that he regrets that period of his life at all. So when he says attacking Starmer is the best way to get media attention, which is what they're after. Sure, yes. Oh, no, absolutely. I don't say that his attitude of being in your face is wrong. At the end of the day, he has stated that he wants to replace Labour. He wants the Green Party to replace Labour, right? Of course, you're going to have to be in your face. I think Starmer should be more in your face with some of these people, right? That's what I would like to see, that in your face attitude. But what's his strategy? Because he claims with this idea of populism, he's going to be taking on Reform UK. No, he ain't. He's not even attempting to tread on Nigel Farage's toes. He is occupying right now, and he's praised Jeremy Corbyn today. Oh, he's full of praise for Jeremy Corbyn. Attack Keir Starmer. Who's that appealing to? That's appealing to the Your Party crowd, isn't it? You know, if he was just attacking Starmer, you could argue, okay, he's also trying to appeal to the Reform UK crowd, but he's praising Jeremy Corbyn. There's only one niche that he's appealing to there. So he is actually now in direct competition with the Your Party. Now, some advantages. One advantage he has over them is that the Green Party can probably consistently claim to be pro-trans. So they can certainly lean into that. So they'll only be competing with the Lib Dems on that one because everyone else is transphobic, right? Where he may struggle and what he's going to have, say, pathetic little attacks. Phil, I haven't attacked him yet, apart from showing the fact that he's a proven con man, which he is. That's not an attack, that's a fact. Where he's going to have problems is, like, what is the Your Party really? What is Your Party? It's not a left-wing party. They're not promoting any left-wing ideas. I've said this before. They're not promoting any socialism. They've abandoned that completely, right? They're giving lip service to it. What are they? They're a party that is formed around this nucleus of Gaza issues, right? And even then, they're tearing themselves to pieces. Jeremy Corbyn's being attacked for being a Zionist, which technically he is. So it's like, so the Your Party, or at least some in it, I mean, I know these are only people in and around the movement. They're not the people who speak for the party. But there's a lot of people who are supporting that, who are saying you can't be a Zionist and in this party. So they're making themselves very niche. Where does Zak Polanski align the Green Party there? Where does he align them? Because he's got to think about that, right? You've got to think about it. Where does he get these votes from? Where does he get the votes from? It doesn't matter, you know, some people in the chat who are just thinking ideologically. I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. I have an ideology. I don't think ideologically on this channel. I think strategically. Where does he get the votes from? Specific groups of voters. Who does he target? If he tries to target people if he tries to pull people away from Reform UK, he's got to have some crossover with the Reform UK, but he's not doing that. So if he wants to target disaffected Tories, he has to have some crossover there. He's not going to do that, right? He's openly saying today he wants to drag the party further to the left. Now, the party has always sort of been left-wing, but like I say, in the places it wins, it's not the left-wing voters that propel them to power. They do have left-wing supporters, obviously, but they also have a few centre-right supporters who are socially liberal, like, you know, sort of the ones who might otherwise vote Lib Dem, maybe. So if he's going to drag them, in fact, let's listen to what he's actually said. Let's just be clear about what he's said. He's talking about, what has he said? Sorry. I can't, sorry, I'm trying to, I saw it somewhere before. I'm trying to think in terms of, not specific policies, you wouldn't expect that as much. Oh, nationalisation, so lean into nationalisation, right? He's also said that Starmer's politics are disgraceful, so he's straight away against the workers' rights. So he is going to need to be asked questions about this. Like, he might just mean he dislikes Starmer's treatment of, say, asylum seekers and trans people, right? Might just mean that. So he has to be asked. He hasn't answered that question yet. So he said Jeremy Corbyn's doing strong principle work with his Gaza inquiry. So he's going to try and lean into that. But is he going to try and take votes off your party? Because that's at the moment where he's positioned himself. So he's trying to win votes by saying Jeremy Corbyn's principled. What's he doing? Is he trying to pull votes from him, or is he trying to coexist with him? But if he's trying to coexist with the Your Party, how does he win more votes when he's occupying the same space? Strategically, that doesn't work. Strategically, so he's attacking Keir Starmer. He wants Labour votes. Makes sense, right? So he's attacking Labour. But does he want the Jeremy Corbyn votes? Because if he doesn't, then how does he expect to win a load more votes? If he aligns with the Your Party policies, isn't that wanting those votes as well? But then, because this is like the Tories, isn't it? The Tories are clearly trying to align themselves with Reform UK to try and win those votes back, but they won't attack Reform UK, and it's not working. It's provably not working. Like if you wanna parties move, like political parties move in terms of where they think, you have to identify the key voters. You have to have in your mind who are your key voters and how do you win, and you have to move to them. And who those key voters are can change from election to election. Where's he moving to? Like I say, the young liberal graduates, left-wing liberal graduates, that is a potentially rich source of votes for the Green Party. But they're mostly in the cities where Labour have large majorities. So they're really going to have to win a lot of them over. They're going to have to win a lot of them over. And they're going to have to do, and it's not impossible, by the way, but they're going to have to win a lot over because they've got to overcome large majorities. And they've got to do it for the next election where, never mind the situation now, we know that the economy is going to be in a better shape, right? Unless there is actually a global crash. We know that the NHS is going to be in better shape. We know that housing is going to be in better shape, which is a big issue for young graduates in and around cities. If they're working in cities, housing's a massive issue. So we know there's going to be better housing. We know there's going to be better public transport. The best start centres are not the big thing for those people, right? But they're going to read about them. And anyone with a social conscience knows that that will also be a good thing. So where does he get them from? Honestly, and I'll go through some comments now because I'm asking a genuine question. Where does he get the votes from? Not scattergun. Where does he get them in a way that lets him win seats? Be specific. Because I don't know where he thinks he's getting them from. Is him praising Jeremy Corbyn similar to Starmer parroting Nige? Not like to convince any of his voters. I don't think Starmer is parroting Nigel Farage. If you listen to the statements yesterday, they've actually attacked them. What they're not doing it is a really in-your-face way, right? So what Labour are trying to do is not parrot Farage. What they're trying to do, because they are actually attacking Reform UK. Labour are attacking Reform UK on a daily basis. They're just not doing it they need to do it in a really in-your-face way to get it in the news, right? Because that's the only way most of you are going to see it, right? If it's big headline, Keir Starmer, like, basically calling Nigel Farage out for a fight outside the pub. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to attack Reform UK in a way that also doesn't put off, the sort of the supporters, the Reform UK supporters. So he's trying to take on Reform UK without treading on the voters' toes, which is quite a difficult thing. And he needs to be more in your face. So, but the fact of the matter is, yes, I mean, if you're making the point that Labour have not pulled those votes from Reform UK, yes, you're absolutely right. So the way Labour have been conducting their issues on immigration and asylum has not won them any votes. It's failed. It's utterly, and I've said this for the last year, their whole strategy is a failing strategy. How's his different? How's his different? Again, you've got to think, where do the votes come from? You can't just go, oh, he's going to say these things, it's dead popular, right, and he'll get loads of votes. That's not how politics works. It's not how elections work, particularly when it's first past the post. you have to say, these are the areas where we think we can win, and this is the big group of voters we need to appeal. At the last election, Labour targeted two types of voter, right? Because you can't just say, do you know what, we're just going to announce mad populist shit and it'll all work out, because it doesn't work out. You know, when people say all the time, oh, Labour got way more votes under Corbyn than Starmer, they lost. Starmer won over twice as many seats as Corbyn. You've got to win seats. If you want power, seats win prizes, not votes. So you've got to get, where are the votes? You know, if he's going to try and attract the Your Party votes, right? If he's going to try and attract those votes, he's got to say how the Your Party are not as good as his party. So he's actually got to attack the Your Party. He doesn't have to attack them on principle, but he has to be able to at least tell those people that want to vote for that party, you will get more bang for your buck voting for the Green Party. At the very least, he has to say, we can win, they can't. But that's not what he's doing at the moment. Now, of course, it's his first day, so he hasn't formed everything yet, right? But if he wants those votes, he's got to do that. If he wants to win over some city seats, some major urban seats, yeah, he can absolutely appeal to young, progressive voters in and around cities. Definitely, he's got scope there. I've said that before I even knew who Zak Polanski was, right? But he's going to have to win a lot of them. And he won't do it with just populism, because if he wants to win those seats, he's targeting mostly graduates, right? Now, I'm not saying graduates, I'm not saying, oh, we've got higher minds, you see, we can't be fooled by populist rhetoric. No, of course we can. But they tend to be a little bit more critical in their thinking, right? So he can lean into the policies that appeal to them, but can he come up with a strategy that makes sense? Because he has to win a lot of them. Like, where did they come from? So I am trying to scan the comments to see if anyone's actually said, because some of you are bound to be much closer to the Green Party than I am. Is Palansky's apparent push on social media going to benefit the Greens in the way that will actually gain them net voters, not necessarily seats? All parties should lean into social media. I've said this enough. Your social media strategy on its own doesn't necessarily focus, because that is very scattergun, but you do need it to get your message out, right? You need it to get your message out. It's utterly ridiculous to me that major political parties do not have a social media strategy, and they don't. I don't care if they think they do, they don't. The Green Party are one of the worst. So maybe that part of it will actually improve. We will see. Obviously, he's literally only just been made the leader today. He'll have to be given time to, you know, if he decides he wants the Green Party, because they've got limited funds, let's be honest. But if he wants the Green Party to have a viable social media strategy, it will probably take him a few months to sort it out, won't it? One statement he made is not on a basis of attack which you are making. Is not a basis of attack which you are making. You have to explain that one. Sorry, TJW. I'm not sure what that is. If I was the Green leader, I'd target Farage directly, because Clacton has two massive wind farms. If Farage had all gas and oil, go green in Clacton. The thing is, though, the Green Party cannot win in Clacton. They're not going to win in Clacton. Right? Clacton is gammon. There are just some parts of the country, I live in one, where and that's the thing, right? If you're going to be strategic as the Green Party leader, you've got to be aware of where you can realistically win. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to focus on the sort of places they have been winning. But what I am going to say is Zak Polanski, right? The lines he looks like he's going to take are going to weaken them in the places they're already winning. Now, that's fine if he thinks he can strengthen them in more places elsewhere. But what I am seeing is he's adopting lines that are going to make some Green voters in the places they win nervous, and I'm not seeing where he thinks his I'm seeing no evidence that he says what he knows what his key voter is, his target voter is. If Palansky succeeds, he may pressure Labour to move further to the left and be more bold. Is that such a bad thing? No. People get this idea. I don't know where people get this idea from. It's like you are aware that Reform UK is a thing. Answer me this: are Reform UK good for the Conservatives? Are they making the Conservatives stronger in elections? No, they're actually risking wiping them out completely. Right? Reform UK. The only reason Reform UK, because people are thinking now the polling now is like not irrelevant, but it's not a reflection of what's going to happen at the next election. The only reason Reform UK have a credible chance at the next election at this point is not because of where the polls are now. It's because the left wing is splitting even more. It's really that simple. You know, my great hope now is Elon Musk promotes this Advance UK and that hives off some votes off Reform UK. That's the big hope at the moment. Reform UK, because that's what people think. Oh, let's do what Reform UK do. What? Destroy the right wing, because Reform UK, right, have stopped the right wing having any chance of power. That's what they've physically done. And also remember, Reform UK did it with a billionaire-backed media operation, Russian bots. You know, think about what Reform UK Reform UK isn't Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is their front man. He's their Lord Haw-Haw, right? He is not the major operation. The major operation is the billionaire-backed think tanks and media and Russian bots, right? Not all Russian bots, some bots from America, right? That's what it is. There's a huge amount of money behind Reform UK. Where's the money coming from behind the Green Party? Where are they getting their money from? Where are they getting it from? So the Green Party cannot emulate Reform UK, but let's say they could. All it does is put the right wing in power. We have a first past the post system. It would be different. Your argument might have more credibility if we had proportional representation, but we don't. We have first past the post. In fact, it's actually annoying. You know, I want electoral reform. Ironically, this sort of thing makes Labour less likely to want it. Because we're in this weird situation, the vote is so fragmented. I am thinking, I want electoral reform sooner now, because that way at least the left wing could win and we might get a coalition. Only Zak Polanski is ruling out a coalition, right? So like he's even saying that if we had electoral reform and we had a proportionate parliament, that he would not support a left wing coalition, right? What? But we don't have a proportional representation. We have a first past the post system. In a first past the post system, you split one wing, and you're losing it. It's really that simple. There is none of this. Oh well, Labour will win this many. Imagine the seats Labour have now. There is no scenario where at the next election Labour drop below the majority threshold and the rest are split between the Your Party and Green Party. There's no scenario where that happens. Mathematically does not happen, right? The seats where Labour are weak are the ones they're competing with Reform UK, which is why even though Labour haven't lost that many votes to Reform UK, they've lost more votes to the Greens and Liberal Democrats and will now lose more votes to the Your Party. The reason why Labour have to focus on Reform UK is because of the first past the post nature. The votes they've lost to Reform UK are more of a problem for them than the greater number of votes they've lost to the Greens and Lib Dems. Because where they've lost those votes to the Greens and Lib Dems are either the places where Labour still have a very big majority, in which case, okay, they just don't get as big a majority next time, or the places they don't win anyway. You have to think strategically. If you want to be a serious political leader, you have to think strategically. And I'm not seeing any strategy from Zak think your tits bigger Palansky. You know, it doesn't matter whether you like the cut of his jib. It doesn't matter that you ignore the fact that he's a raging misogynist. You know, it doesn't matter. He hasn't got a strategy. You say a credible strategy to address climate change that isn't heavily dependent on unproven carbon capture could be a potentially popular path to a degree of tangible economic growth. Labour already have that. This thing about the carbon capture is an absolute nonsense. They've put a little bit of money into it. First of all, where we know it does work, cement production. Second of all, is to produce jobs. Labour, right, think about where Thatcher went wrong. People might say, oh, she destroyed industry. There were some industries like the computer industry where she did destroy it and that was stupid. But some of the other industries were just, they were already collapsing. The problem with Thatcher is not the collapse of those industries. The problem was she didn't look at the places affected and go, they need something else to keep those economies going. They need jobs. If she'd have said, like the coal industry was dying. Do you know what? It was dying. It was incredibly expensive to dig more coal out. I grew up in a pit village. The damage that Thatcher did was not the fact that coal ran out, right? Or to the point where it's too expensive to dig it out. It's the fact she didn't go, those men need jobs, right? That was her problem. What Labour are doing is going, we cannot just transition from fossil fuel heavy industry to green energy and over a span of 20 years, right? Because that will cause massive economic upheaval in communities dependent on those jobs. So what they're doing is they're creating jobs. So the carbon capture thing that Labour are doing, it's not a heavy part of their strategy at all. It's a tiny part. It's a little bit of money specifically to move jobs from fossil fuels to green energy is what it actually is. Matt, they're saying I would vote green locally, it's a shock because they're the only very reliable party on promotion of my prime issue, active travel, decent quality public realm. In terms of particular areas, I'm not saying don't, I mean, obviously I'm in Labour, I'm not telling people how to vote at all anyway. But in certain areas, I'm not saying, oh, you know, if you vote Green, you're a fool. In certain areas, the Greens win. And in certain areas, they can win. But if you're talking about, if all Zak Polanski does is do a load of populist bullshit to try and garner votes, right? And he doesn't have in mind the key voter he needs to attract in the key seats, then all he does is he continues the scattergun approach, pulling votes from whoever might actually challenge the right wing, right? Because in every seat, you've got, in almost all seats, you've got two candidates that can win. You might have 10 candidates on the ballot. You've got two that can win. Occasionally, there's a genuine three-way contest. Very rarely, but occasionally you get the odd one. Mostly it's two, right? Now, there are some seats where that two, just like Clacton, was between the Conservatives and Reform UK. So in that case, it's like, well, you're buggered either way. I would still say I've got a very definite priority in mind. I would still say a Conservative is better than Reform UK. But nonetheless, it's right-wing, however you look at it. Then you've got some areas where it might be, for example, between Labour and the Green Party, in which case that's fine. You know, whoever you vote for, because you're going to get a left-wing MP out of it. That's fine. Where you've got a problem is in the vast majority of swing seats where it's between, like, what should we say, a progressive option and a regressive option. So you've got a choice between Tory stroke Reform UK and something else, because the something else is always better. If you split the vote there, that's how you help the right wing into government. That's exactly how you help the right wing into government. But there you go. But anyway, someone's trying to say there, if you vote Labour, you are a socialist. Well, let's have a look now. Biggest boost to workers' rights in my lifetime, including specifically making it easier for unions to carry out their duties in the workplace. Nationalisation of defence accommodation. NHS England's been renationalised. You've got nationalisation of rail, train companies. You've also got huge boost to taxes on the rich. You've got a massive boost to affordable and social housing, boosting access to the NHS, including going to be healthcare community centres in local communities. You don't always have to go into town for the for the scans. You've got rolling out nationalised public transport, like empowering metro mayors to do what London has had for a long time, and Manchester has done more recently. Yeah, this is all socialism. I'm not sure what you think socialism is, but that is actually socialism. It's not necessarily as extreme as you would like. It's not communism, but it is socialism. All of that is socialism. So I'm not sure what you think socialism is. But again, none of this, I have tried to scan the comments. I do apologise if I actually have missed one that's tried to answer it. But I'm still trying to identify from anyone who will know what Zak Polanski intends better than I, to tell me who his key voter is. Because he's got to find a key voter. How is he misogynistic? Did I not explain? Did I not explain? He tried to con a load of women into thinking they could think their tits bigger. It's not exactly the stuff of feminism, is it? I think there's some examples of Greens making local progress in Red Wall. For example, now 6 Greens on Darlington Council. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The thing is, this is what I mean about they have got that scope. They've got that. The Labour have pissed off a lot of people, right? Now, I think that when they start to deliver on a lot of things, they'll win a lot of that support back. But on social issues, Labour they've leaned into the social conservatism, which I don't think. I understand it on the immigration a little bit, but particularly on asylum, actually. But by and large, it's not just that I myself am not socially conservative, so I don't like it. It's strategically, some of their social conservatism, particularly the transphobia, is just, it's a hit. It's strategically inept, right? So yeah, the Green Party can absolutely pick up votes there. But remember, at the local level, it's not that local elections have you can't, use them at all. But local elections are decided by fewer votes. The Green Party people will vote for a wider spread of parties in local elections because there's a better chance of them winning. Like, a lot of voters vote pragmatically. So a lot of voters will not consciously vote for a party they don't think can, because they actually want to influence the outcome, right? They don't just want to register a protest vote. Some do, but many don't. Whereas at the local level, well, the Green Party can actually win. It's like a few hundred votes, right? So you can go into a pub on your way to vote, promise to buy everyone a pint if they'll come and vote with you, and you can swing the election just doing that, right? Say Paul McKenna of politics. Well, to be fair, I don't think Paul McKenna actually ripped anyone off. I think the things he used his hypnotherapy for were things you could actually use hypnotherapy for. Things that were, hypnotherapy is about your mind, literally, like that. It's not going to induce physiological changes beyond your mind. But hypnotherapy is very, very good for some things. You can't grow parts of your anatomy with it. Socialism isn't just where the government does stuff. Actually, it is. Socialism is defined as being where the state manages the means of production. So it is literally just where the government does stuff. That's actually what socialism is. Capitalism is where the government stops doing stuff. It's really simple. Socialism is the government says we should run this. Capitalism is the free market should run this. Ooh, a super chat. Goose, sorry, I can't see that. Is that Goose Springsteen? I'm going to guess. £20. Oh, thank you very much. Musk back in advance would help reform. Farage is adept at placing himself as a speaker of sense for the forgotten without being extreme. Millions for advance make Farage look reasonable and under siege by a foreign oligarch. But would Farage lean into that? Would he attack Musk? Because he hasn't yet, has he? And also, when you say Musk back in advance would help reform, I'm not sure. I mean, again, we don't advance at the moment. No one really knows what they are, right? But if Musk decides to properly lean into them, and he's shown signs he will, I will talk about it at some point this week, but we have actually had news happen. If Musk actually leans into it, Twitter is a very, very, very powerful voice to that section of the population, right? To the sort of, think about what Twitter is ideal for. A co-opted Twitter, which is what we've got. X is a co-opted Twitter for the far right. It's full of people who are disaffected. They don't trust the mainstream media. So they're not going to get their news from established media sources, social media, but they still want to know what the news is. So social media. Twitter is very, very, the reason why, if you're famous on Twitter, you're famous amongst politicians and journalists, is because politicians and journalists are on Twitter. Twitter is a brilliant social media platform for getting simple messages out quickly, for spreading messages really quickly. Simple messages. Perfect for politics, right? Perfect for politics. And you've got, so yeah, so you've got these people who are, they don't trust the mainstream media, but are also susceptible to outrage, because social media in general works best off strong emotions. I've said it before, all social media platforms, by the way, they don't even, like YouTube doesn't amplify certain types of content. The algorithm just pushes content to whoever it thinks would want to see it. So the reason why YouTube channels that push outrage will do better than ones, like in my case, that try to push moderation, I try to anyway, is not because the algorithm is pushing the outrage stuff. It's because people are more attracted to it. It's not actually just outrage. It's just strong emotion. It can be really happy stuff. You know, videos on really, really good news can do well as well, as long as it's plausible. You can't just pretend that we're entering another golden age and everything's brilliant, hurrah, and get loads of views. But strong emotion drives engagement. So, you know, Twitter, if you want to get through to people who are susceptible to outrage, particularly right-wing outrage, and don't trust the mainstream media or establishment politics, Twitter has you. Twitter has you by the balls. So Elon Musk, if he really wanted to, could, I think, absolutely promote the hell out of Advance UK. Advance UK would still need the money to be able to field candidates and stuff like that to take advantage of it. I don't know what money they've got behind them. They'll also probably need to build up a bit of mainstream media support as well. Advance UK, another lobbying group, think tank. Well, sort of. They do want to. They're sort of being a political party as well. But there we go. They say socialism of the economy under direct worker control. Phil, no, it's not. It's not simply the state. It's not under direct worker control at all. Absolute nonsense. It's literally the state. It's the government controlling it. Now, communism works on the principle that it should be done on behalf of the workers, and the workers should be involved in that. But that's not socialism. Although if it was, your argument still falls flat, because Labour are improving access for workers to have representation on boards, just like they have in Germany. That's a big part of the Employment Rights Act, which I'm sure you're aware of because you've read it through, yeah? Because it's a big piece. Because if you're a socialist, the Employment Rights Bill is an absolutely massive piece of legislation, so I'm sure you know every word. But there it is. We'll have to close it. We've gone on for ages, actually. It's quite interesting. I'm afraid I still haven't seen who, maybe we just don't know who his target voter is going to be. Or maybe some of you don't think he needs a target voter. I have to say he's going to. Don't make me get out my I told you so flag in a couple of years' time. But there we go. Anyway, thanks for coming on, everyone. As I say, I may or may not, don't clear your diaries or anything, because there's going to be a big announcement in the Oval Office tonight from our point of view, 7 p.m. I may live stream that because it could be quite seismic. Or it might not. I don't know. Well, I'm going to do my usual what if Trump dies video at 5 p.m. though. But thanks very much. I've got to go and record it now. So thanks very much for coming on, everyone. Have a great rest of day. Until next time, I'll see you later.